Okay.
Thank you all for attending the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Lehigh County Authority. This is May 20th, 2024. This meeting is being recorded. We'll go on our website at a later date, I guess. Have a roll call of the Board of Directors.
All right. Roll call. Brian Noggle.
Here.
Amir Famili.
Here.
Ted Lyons. Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Norma Cusick. Norma.
Here.
Thank you. Kevin Baker. Linda Rosenfeld. Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Ramus.
Here.
I think we have 6 board members present, so we do have a quorum.
Okay. All right, the information packages for the board were mailed out in advance. So I should have an opportunity to review them or the meeting. Begin by the agenda and changes to the record.
Today, no changes, additions, or corrections. Just want to note that our monthly financial and operating reports were distributed the day after the agenda was published, but it was republished on our website and distributed electronically.
You know, the only change was the addition of the page numbers for those 2 documents.
Correct.
Yeah. Need for the executive session.
There will, oh, thank you for being executive session following the close of this meeting to discuss a personnel.
And move on to the approval of minutes on the 22nd, 2024 board meeting.
So I just have one minor comment. Bottom of page 3, under board member comments, 3rd paragraph, 3rd line, there's a random I run loose in that one. I think.
It would be proud of you.
Going in his footsteps.
Good job.
Other than that, it looked good. So, motion to approve.
Motion by Jeff and the second by Amir. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I have it. Thank you very much. Moving on to public comments, at this, we give this opportunity to the public to discuss any items that are not on the agenda.
I don't have anything, Brian. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Okay, moving on, action discussion items. We have 2 items that are finance and administration. First one is resolution number 5, 2024-1, destruction of authority documents seeking approval. It's the blue pages within our board package and digital board packet pages 7 to 9.
Thank you. And this, I believe, has become a sort of a matter of just regular business that we do once or twice a year to address the disposition of certain records in accordance with the Municipal Records Act. So the items that are scheduled for destruction are listed in Schedule A, primarily accounting and financial related documents that fall within certain timelines for them to be phased out and shredded. So that's what that's about. And if there's any questions.
Nope. I'll look over to Mr. Solicitor. And do we need to do a roll call vote on something like this when there's like no controversial issues?
No, I believe the summary is a great summary from Weasel, and I think it's a matter of course. Point of filing the business to so roll calls next.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we need a motion of second for motion number 5, 2024-1.
I'll move that. Oh, second.
Sean, second.
Yes.
All right, any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda. It's the water utility benchmarking study. It's a staffing survey. It's discussion topic. Nothing was set out in advance.
Thank you. And it's really, pardon me, with great pleasure to that I introduced Jim Gimley, who is a longtime friend of Lehigh County Authority and the water industry as a whole. Jim was brought on board late last year to help us with a staffing analysis. And specifically, we were asking ourselves internally, and I think challenged by the board during the budget season, to understand really what our future staffing needs are. And also with the growth in our capital program and regulatory requirements, what are other utilities doing to address these same concerns? And that's what made me think of Jim, because Jim knows a lot of utilities. He's worked in the field for many years and does this kind of connection work to bring utilities together to learn from each other. And so we hired him to do a brief survey of utilities. First of all, find utilities that are similar enough to LCA that we could learn something important from them, and then connect us to them to explore these major issues. So that work is primarily completed in terms of the survey and the benchmarking piece, and we invited Jim to this meeting to provide a brief summary of that work and some of the next steps we'll be taking. So Jim, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me. Good morning, everybody.
I have your presentation ready to go. Do you want me to put it on the screen, or do you have any introductory comments you'd like to make?
No, we can just, I was just gonna ask you about the logistics of that. So you're gonna roll it on the screen and I'll just follow through? Okay, great. Very good.
There you go. Take it away.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me here. As Liesl mentioned, I've had the opportunity to work with water and sewer utilities for a long time, including Lehigh County. I have in my bio, the funnest part of it is the last one, where I've actually had a chance to work with your organization in 4 consecutive decades. So I don't know whether that's good or bad. I think it's good, but I really have always enjoyed it. But anyways, Liesl set it up pretty well with the idea. One of the things I've done a lot is connect utilities with each other. There's no one way to do this out here. We're all in the same business, but we don't do it exactly the same way, but we do a lot of things the same way. And so and we have a very generous group of utilities that we work with across the country. So it came to mind that this would be a great thing to do, is to reach out and touch base with those folks. So go ahead, Lisa. I think we wanted to just the overview of the process. So again, the idea is challenges that Lehigh County Authority is facing are not new, and they're shared. Your situation's your situation, but we can learn a lot from asking others what they're doing and how they're doing it and that type of thing. So that's what we did. Is I teamed up with Lisa and her management team, the leadership team, and we put together the survey. We got together a list of utilities from all of our heads and lists and connections, and came up with a bunch that we invited, and a dozen utilities took us up on it. And so along with you, that made 13. So we got those out in the fall. We got the answers back right around the end of the year. I think one came in right after the first week of December, first week of January. And so then throughout the spring, we've been pulling together and going back and forth and kind of sorting out what we've learned. And then it culminated in a workshop. I came back out to your place end of March, and went through a process with the team, and then that's where we came up with some recommendations and things going forward. We do have a full survey report that I've put together and we've distributed to the participating utilities, and that's, Lisa, we can talk about that I think at the end, what the board is interested in seeing. But anyways, we've got that participant version of the summary report has gone out to all of the participating utilities. So here we are today. So let me, that covers the whole process. So let's take a look at the participants. These are the 13. The ones in blue are your fellow Keystone staters, Capital Region, Erie, Lancaster, and Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. And then we do have a scattering of folks across the country. A lot of them are on the east side of the country, the mid-Atlantic, but I do have connections lots of places. So we were able to get some help with folks in Cincinnati and even as far out as here in my neighboring Golden, Colorado. So great group of utilities. And again, there's quite a range of size. Go ahead, Liesl, on the next one. There's the survey itself is a three-part thing. So the first part is a set of profile questions where we ask people to kind of quantify and qualify who they are and how big they are and how they're organized and those kind of things. We'll see that in a minute. The second part is where we ask them to basically fill in the blanks and give us some short answer essays about how they do things and why they do things and that type of thing. And then the third part is the ongoing process of any follow-up questions. And so I can explain that a little bit later. But anyways, but that process has already started now by when I received the results. If utilities had questions, they would send me a note and I'd answer it back and forth. Now, if they have an interest in learning from other utilities, including yours, there's a process that comes with that report. So anyways, so let's look at the survey a little bit, Liesl, I think is the next slide. So in the profile, so these are the kind of things. So the benchmarking, apples to apples type of thing, well, we want to make sure we're talking to the organizations that are either really close or pretty darn close or close enough to you folks. So we looked at services provided, we look at the organizational structure, the governance, but we also asked questions just straight up. How big's your staff? How many vacancies do you have? How much money you spend? So you get a feel for how the organizations are built and organized and run so that we can kind of say, hey, these folks match up with us and we can learn from them. But these are the basics, and there's all kinds of details on this if you'd like. But go ahead. And so these are some of the highlights of the profile. So again, 5 of the 13 are from Pennsylvania. 11 of the 13, this is one of the most important things in terms of what you can do and how you do things. And you know that as a board of an authority. And so that's why only 2 of the 13 are actually departments of a city of any kind. The rest of them are either an authority or a special district. There's a big range in size. A lot of them are right in the same ballpark as you in terms of service area and population and that type of thing. A couple are way too big. 3 are way too big, but they also are trusted friends and they do really good things. And we knew they could give us some information about particular programs. So for example, DC Water and Cincinnati both have really good lead service line replacement programs, which is one of your biggest issues. And Hampton Roads, huge regional wastewater entity, has done a lot of good things about communications, and they also manage a big network of wastewater treatment facilities, which is in your future. So it was good to connect with them as organizations. There are a handful of organizations that line up as I call the best match, but just every utility, regardless of their size and place, pitched in something that we learned from. And we also have a handful, more than a handful, probably half of the utilities that have participated have extended interest in helping us in very specific things. And we'll actually mention that a little bit later. Okay, Liesl. So this is a lot to look at on a slide, but when you get to the second part of the survey, we now started asking questions about each of these areas. And it could be something as how many people do you have in human resources? Where does it sit in the organization? And then people would give that response, and based on the response, it would be something that we could confirm, learn from. But if you look down through them, it covers quite the spectrum of things that happen every day at a utility. So human resources, communication, all the customer service, a big emphasis, capital programs and new development. We also, if you look over on the other side, we've got engineering, planning, project delivery, project management. So that was a big theme in terms of what we were asking. Span of control, we talked about special positions, asset management, lead line replacement program, again, is a big one for everybody who has a water distribution system in North America, in the United States. They have that as on their plate for the most part. But so these are the things that we looked at and got lots of information back from the utilities. questions or comments or anything, jump in as I'm going through, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions about the robust list of areas of things we asked about. Good? Okay, go ahead, Liesl. So all that sorted out, information in the 30 page, over 30 pages of information that came back, utility by utility by utility. And so we, by sorting it out and going back and forth with Liesl and the senior leadership team there, we kind of put it into two buckets. One where LCA looks like you're in pretty good shape. And so this is that list. Human resources, staffing, budget, and programs are all solid. You'll see that on the next slide too. We need to fill some of those spots, but customer service, the current approach in place works very well. Span and control, that came across by asking all those utilities, how many people report to Liesl? How many people report to the people who report to Liesl? How does that all work? Everything seemed to be pretty good shape. Strategic plan, your current plan, the implementation process is working well, but we also asked for and received a number, more than half of the utilities again gave us examples of their strategic plans and how they're being implemented. So there's a lot of good resources that we got in the process. And engineering, the way that you have a combination of inside and outside outsource engineering services, internal focus on project management, that's industry norm. Variation on the theme, utility to the next, but you're in there doing it pretty much the same as a lot of the utilities. So these things were, again, things that were strengths, things that were in good shape going from the results. Liesl, next one. So this is where we said, okay, those things considered, where we need to put some focus. Again, we've mentioned it, the lead line replacement program, top of the list. Capital project planning and delivery, especially for expanding project scope and workload. Lots of stuff on people's plates, lots of stuff coming. How are we going to do that? Communications. Communications right now, good structure, you know, for the most part, but some questions about when we have to stretch and take on the communication that goes with these strategic initiatives like the lead line replacement program, because there's a big public outreach component to that. The current communications, the way you're set up is stretching you and pushing you on that. Finance, again, stretching to support other areas. For example, alternative funding for capital projects, rate and affordability analysis. You know, there's lots of things, the day-to-day fundamentals are covered, but when these new initiatives come in and they take that extra layer, then finance is stretched. Human resources, again, organizationally set up fine. The staff vacancies was the priority. Anything to add to that, Liesl? I wanted to make sure I wasn't blowing by something that you wanted to make me.
Yeah, no, I think that you covered it really well, Jim.
Okay.
And just want to highlight that probably for us and the conversations we've had with the board, the first two items these are almost in priority order. The first two items, the lead line program, the capital project, you know, the expanded capital program are the two biggest pain points that I think we're trying to address.
Right. Right, and that was the point. So when Liesl said, Jim, you know, next steps, can you come out and help us grind through this process? So that's when we set up the workshop there the last week of March. So a couple months ago, and so that's the next slide. And so, you know, right on cue. The lead program and the capital program, we knew they were the top. We also knew we needed to address these other areas in some way, and time allowing, some of the other things that are asset management and technology and emergency response and some of the other things that are part of the day-to-day and kind of come up and go back down, and some of them are interrelated. We kept those in mind, saying if we've got some time, let's see if we can spend some time on them. And the other thing was to make sure in that workshop setting that we were clear on who our friends were from our survey participants who were willing to spend some more time with us to learn more about how they did their lead program, how they're managing their capital project planning, especially those who experienced a lot of growth in the past, kind of thing, which like what you're anticipating, that type of thing. So when we did the workshop, we had a template that we used for each of the topics, and I think this slide captures what we did as kind of so Lisa was asking the questions, and I was doing the scribing, and the team was filling in the blanks, and it worked out well. But we reminded ourselves why this is a top challenge. We answered the questions, what is currently working, the strengths and the positive side, as well as what the struggle was. And so we looked at it from a handful of different lenses, if you will, organizational structure, the role, the person in the role, programs and practices, technology and equipment. Do we have the right stuff? Do we need more? Resources, time and people and money, and then if there's anything else that came up. And then after we had that type of conversation, we pulled together to say, okay, what are the key actions that we need to take and when? And then we assigned a priority to it as well, in terms of, urgently very soon to sometime this year or sometime to next year. We had a break point in there. But anyways, did I miss anything there, Lisa? I think that covers the what we did on each of the topics, and then the output was the result then. So again, without pulling these things up in front, because some of this stuff are still pieces in fitting into place, but overall, these are some of the highlights, key results, that strategic enhancements to the organizational structure. For example, the lead program, where does it fit in the organization, and how do we make sure we're best positioned to handle that top priority, right? And the same thing with the capital programs. Identifying key positions to fill, some that were already in place and some that came through the results of this survey, and by asking others and learning from others and saying, wow, that we're up against this, maybe that's something we need to do. And then the other part of it was prioritizing the sequence of the changes and any additions, recommended additions, that type of thing, right? So those three things I think are something that Liesel's going to be spending more, and staff are going to be spending more time with you in the near future. But those really came out of this process and kind of solidified a direction. Again, we mentioned this, and it's going to come in. It's going to come in and be very helpful. We have good friends, and Lisa will attest, and so will all of her staff. We have good friends in other utilities who are very willing to share what they've learned and what they've struggled with, and to help us avoid it. But we do have those connections, and those are a work in progress, and you will be learning from them as we go. And then again, Lisa, I guess this is a way for me to hand it off to you to kind of say what you have in mind in terms of timing and planning and all that type of thing. So.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I think you really covered it very well, but we'll say that what we're hoping to do is with the enhancements to the org structure and the positions that we've identified, the budgeted positions we already have budgeted, and new positions we're envisioning. We want to package all of that together for public presentation to the board in June.
Right.
Along with one of the key pieces is also to put together the budget impact and understand what we're talking about, because it may require a budget amendment if we're going to add new positions in 2024. So we still have to work through some of those details before we can present it to the full board, but hoping for June. Yeah.
Great. So that was all I had to present. Any questions that I can help answer?
Couple questions. So one of your presentations, one of your slides, you mentioned programs are solid. Could you expand on that? What do you mean the programs are solid?
Sure. The one that I said that in particular, well, I made reference to human resources. I think the idea is that how your human resources team and function is set up, and the programs that you have. When I say programs in place, you know, all the programs that you have for recruiting and hiring and onboarding and internal training and career path and those types of things. Again, we didn't spend a lot of time digging in on those, but I've been around you before, and again, the responses that we got and the conversations that we've had, me and Liesl and the team, that's why I'm giving it the programs are solid point of view. The reason the human resources showed up on the second slide was because of the vacancies that were existing. When I was there the last week of March, they were still open, right? But everything that was in place was in good shape. Does that make sense?
Did you come across with any areas that we can improve our efficiency? If there are some efficiency processes that we have, that through automation, other things, we can improve our organizational structure. So, you know, we don't constantly adding people, but also looking for automation and efficiency.
We didn't spend a lot of time on this, and Chris, you may, if I can, if you're there, I can see you're, you and I have the same barber, so I can always pick you out in a crowd. But we in the survey, to answer your question, in the survey we asked a bunch of questions about technology, and there were some comments that we got back from organizations and they shared, and some of the conversations that we had did come to that. They didn't rise up to the top to meet up with the lead line replacement and the capital programs. But there was a good bit of conversation around the information technology, especially as it supports asset management, as it supports the capital programs, that type of thing. So Chris, I don't know if it's fair to hand it off to you if you wanted to fill in the blank, but we didn't learn anything specifically to your question, sir, but we did gather information, and it did help us inform us where we're headed in that area.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. And Amir, this is probably a big portion of this is our Munis, our ERP upgrade, which we're reevaluating, re-implementing our internal ERP program. And through that, we're just not putting a shiny face on it. We're actually going through each of the internal processes that feed into how we do payroll, how we hire people, how we purchase things, how billing is done. Each one of those situations is being evaluated individually and subsequently being put into a new system. Secondarily to that, Chuck and AJ and Phil and JP, Jason, the team downstairs are evaluating a piece of software. Actually, we purchased it. You guys approved purchase called Procore. And that is going to help us manage our programs better and get us, you know, more in tune with on time, on budget, you know, that the board has been asking for a long time. So I think that Jim's point is, you know, that the internal team has heard all of this, and it did come up in Jim's evaluation. But I think the understanding was that we kind of have our arms around it enough at this point where items like lead and copper and the overall program management downstairs in sense of how the capital team and the engineering team is going to handle large projects kind of took a more weighty need than the efficiencies of software itself.
If I, Chris, just additional question. So if you look at the state that we are in today, because 2 years from now, we have Munis, we have project management systems.
Yes.
Does everything that were presented here agrees if we are 2 years from now we're sitting? I do recognize we don't have all the pictures. So I just don't want to, you know, I'm trying to get to something that maybe those two processes is going to help with without addition of the people.
I understand completely what you're saying, Amir. I think the lead and copper program specifically, it's just such a big bear that unfortunately the only way to handle it is to throw bodies at it. There's just far too much at this point. But I think the scope of the team downstairs can maintain its current size and increase from $20-25 million a year to a $45-50 million a year team with the software that's being implemented. So, you know, I think that's the approach that the team internally took up. I know JP here was a giant champion for Procore, as well as Chuck and AJ. So, but, you know, I think to that end, Amir, the thought process is how do we do twice as much projects with 8% more staff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think one of the things, since we're not presenting the actual recommendations, we're just talking conceptually now at this point. I think when we get to presenting recommendations, one of the things that we're thinking about is the projects that are more of a, I mean, 10 years doesn't seem like a short period of time, but essentially it's kind of a near-term need. The lead program is going to need to be completed in a 10-year period. And so are there strategies to staff or manage that project that don't include permanent staff additions? You know, and how do you kind of weather the bubble of all the projects that we're experiencing through a mix of internal and external support?
Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions? I have one, Jim. Did you have any time spent on discussing the role of the board and the interaction between board and staff, and anything did you glean from the board responsibilities?
You know, it was not one of the questions that we asked. We asked about profile in the profile segment. We just had them confirm how they were set up, just so that we would be reassured, you know, that, you know, as opposed to working with a city council and a mayor and that type of thing, and having the freedom and the organization that you have as an authority. So, but we never really went into roles and responsibilities in any of the questions in the core section. But
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't one of the things that we felt we needed to learn, I guess. Lisa, you might want to say it better than me, but I thought we were, other than just to confirm the nature and the size, we didn't go into the function of it.
Yeah, and it's certainly something, because we have 11 of the 13 utilities are authorities or special districts, that could very easily be a follow-up if there was something the board wanted to know about how their boards function.
Yeah. Right.
I think that would be beneficial. We can learn from others that are willing to share their thoughts about board staff interactions. I think that would be valuable.
Noted.
Anything else? Yep. Anything further?
No, again, thanks for the chance to work. Or Norma, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Did anything surprise you?
Did anything surprise me? No, you know, not really. I don't profess to know it all at all. But but the questions that we asked and the folks that we asked them from, we got good responses. We got what I expected, but there wasn't anything that blew us away, I guess, or really said, "Wow, didn't see that coming," type of thing. One thing that it was reassuring, and what was one of the expectations, is that people were really generous with their information and their willingness to help. So that rang true. But otherwise, but to tell you, I wasn't surprised or stunned by anything. Lisa, your thoughts on that?
No, I think we learned in some respects, what we expected to learn. And I think that the fact that everyone's sort of struggling with the same things was expected, but reassuring in a way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.
Any other questions from the board members? All right. Concluded.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care. Have a good rest of the meeting.
All right, moving on now, we have a topic under water. It's the water system interconnections, design phase, cost sharing agreement. Seeking approval is the yellow documents within the board package, digital board packet, pages 10 to 25.
Thank you. So The document that's enclosed in the board packet is an agreement, a multi-party intermunicipal agreement. And the attachment is the proposal for the work that's covered by the agreement. Just a little bit of background, and I'll ask Phil to jump in where you can to supplement. The city of Allentown water system has had longstanding interconnections with the city of Bethlehem for emergency use, and those have not been in operation for quite a few many years. More than 10.
1960s.
Oh, there you go. More than 50. It's been quite a long time. I know that when we undertook the lease arrangement with Allentown, that was one of the things that we evaluated were the emergency interconnections, and the interconnections with Bethlehem were noted as existing but not functioning at that time. And so over the last couple of years, Bethlehem has expressed an interest in evaluating them and getting them up and running again, and making sure that we can draw water from each other's systems in the event of an emergency. We're looking at the specific interconnection points that already exist. So we have a lot of good information on hydraulic what happens there. It's really more about just getting in there and designing the upgrades and working through that process. So over the course of time, Bethlehem and LCA have been talking about how to make this happen. And we've kind of come up with this phased or stepped approach where we would share costs on design and then come back and figure out, once we have design, how we're going to share costs on construction and then ongoing O&M and other operational costs. So
Lisa,
yes, sir.
there was a question raised about potential conflict of interest on one of the board members. Did that issue get resolved?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, two.
Two, okay.
And I
And-
spoke to Kevin.
All right, and is there any restrictions at all?
I believe there will be some who will be abstaining.
Okay.
So since we're asking that question now, if we have two abstentions, that means there's only 4 voting members. Is that an issue or no?
You have a majority of those present, so I
Yeah.
think that's.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yep. So that's the background, and I just wanted to say that this agreement is very simple because it is intended to be just that first step of the design phase, getting the design phase done. Also recognize that we have 4 municipal entities that need to approve it, which is a little different because Lehigh County Authority can't enter into a municipal agreement on the city's behalf without the city also agreeing. So LCA and the city both have to agree, and City of Bethlehem has an authority. And so both the City of Bethlehem and their authority have to agree. So with that said, Bethlehem Authority has already approved this agreement in this form. And if we're agreeable to move this forward today, we would just like to have the motion worded in a way that would allow us to make some minor revisions as all of the various solicitors for these organizations are doing the review, which Kevin has done on our behalf. I think that's kind of all I have. Phil, do you want to add anything on this one?
No, it's been years of this. It started during the beginning of COVID is when Bethlehem first approached us. So this is just a culmination of 3-4 years of field work and engineering behind the scenes to get to the spot we're at right now.
So the agreement itself, again, is this multi-municipal agreement, and specifically laying out that Lehigh County Authority will cover 50% of the design cost for these interconnections, and that will come back with additional agreement language around construction and ongoing operation.
Anything further?
That's all I have.
Okay. Questions from the board? So these are actually line replacements or there's something in the ground now in the place that left in place.
And so can you talk a little more about the specifics?
Yeah, there's vaults in the ground right now that are inactive, so the vaults either have to be completely ripped out and a new vault put in, or those details be worked out. But there's 3 vaults, and all 3 vaults need to be quote unquote redone. And the details are still being, are not exactly finalized yet, but what exactly they want to do there. But again, there's 3 vaults there already.
Okay, it's all part of the design phase. and
Yeah.
Trying to figure out exactly what we're gonna do.
There's $151,400 proposal by AECom that is the attachment to the agreement. We would be splitting that equally with the city of Bethlehem. But city of Bethlehem would be in the driver's seat in terms of managing AECom, so they will have to separately actually approve the contract with AECom. And our agreement is more about the sharing with Bethlehem.
On that ACOM proposal, it just had me a little confused there because they mentioned an interconnection with Easton Suburban Water Authority, something they're also doing.
Yeah, so Bethlehem sits between 2 large systems, the Easton Suburban Water Authority and the City of Allentown LCA system, and interconnections on both the east side and the west side. They're looking for that redundancy if something should happen to their system that they have emergency supply. These would be 2-way connections though, so Allentown could serve portions of Bethlehem, and Bethlehem could serve portions of Allentown if those emergency interconnections were ever needed.
So they were never exercised. They never had any kind of a trial just to make sure that it actually would work. They ever didn't do that at all.
Andrew, if you know more details, that's what I've been told.
Yeah, I'm not aware of them ever being exercised, and some of the permitting with the DEP has changed over the past 5-6 years. How they classify interconnections in general. These ones are no longer up to standards of what they would need to be built with now, so we wouldn't even be able to get them permitted to use in this current state.
Okay. All right.
Has the city, I'm assuming the city has looked at this already also.
City of Allentown, they're on the call, and Brian could speak to that, but they have seen it, they have reviewed it, and it's in their process for. They haven't approved it yet, but it's in their process for review. Brian, do you have anything you want to share about that?
That's correct. And I think one of the issues with opening up the valves, if I remember correctly from is the difference in pressures between the 2 systems. That's why I think they weren't really activated in certain sections. Just to follow up on that.
I'm looking for what we're actually going to approve. I mean, that's a document that we have in front of us.
Yes.
Is there language at all that goes with it?
The agreement is the language. Sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
No, okay, I'm just looking for something encapsulated that.
Yeah, so we're asking for approval of the intermunicipal water service agreement between the 4 parties, LCA, City of Allentown, Bethlehem Authority, and the City of Bethlehem regarding design phase for these water system interconnections, and contingent upon legal review by all 3 parties or all 4 parties.
So we're reviewing it as of this date, and should we be saying that the draft as presented at this date and then approved at some point in time? That'll be today, right? The approval will be today.
The approval is today, or you'd be authorizing me to sign the document with any unsubstantial changes that the solicitor may approve.
All right, so having heard that, I assume that was the motion to approve this document as presented to us today.
Sure.
Made by Linda and seconded by Amir.
I'll second it.
Did you do it, Mark?
Give it to Mark.
All right, motion made and seconded for approval of this document. Any questions?
So just a comment, so my firm has done work for the city of Bethlehem for a long time, we continue to do work for them. think it's a great project, but we're gonna abstain.
It's similar to that. I was recently left Easton. Now I'm employed by the city of Bethlehem, and therefore I will be abstaining.
All right, so we'll do a voice vote on this one. Roll call.
Okay. The roll call vote on the interconnection agreement, Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Amir Famili,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Abstain.
Norma Cusick,
Yes,
Linda Rosenfeld,
Yes,
Sean Ziller,
Abstain.
Mark Gramus.
Yes.
Thank you. 5 yes votes.
Thank you. Motion passed. All right, moving on. Thank you very much. Motion, let's see. Wastewater is the next item. Pre-treatment plant, critical upgrades. Seeking approval, it's purple documents in the board package, digital pages 26 to 39.
Okay, Liesl, what I'm presenting to the board today is design and bid phase services for basically an asset management related project for near-term upgrades at our pretreatment plant. Historically, we've had a capital budget of about $700,000 for small capital upgrade projects at the pretreatment plant. It's not kept up with the need to upgrade processes and replace equipment. So now we're faced with a situation where we have a looming Act 537 plan where those projects are often on the horizon a little bit, maybe 5 years. And we need to address critical needs at our pretreatment plant to maintain performance of that plant and avoid any violations down at Klein's Island because of failures at the pretreatment plant. So back in November, the board authorized AECom to perform preliminary engineering to identify and scope critical needs, upgrades for critical needs at the pretreatment plant. They've done that, and what they have provided us with is numerous technical memos that form a basis of design for upgrading the pretreatment plant in the near term. The areas for upgrade are the final clarifiers, the cryogenic system, the high purity oxygen system, the air decks, the bioreactors as we call them, and influent and effluent flow meter. So basically it's those 4 areas that are going to be upgraded. And we feel that will basically be sort of a bridge to get us to when there's longer term upgrades at the pretreatment plant. The scope of which have not been totally hammered out yet. I mean, we have there are some ideas, some recommendations, but those things won't be implemented for a few years. So we gotta buy us some time for the next few years and do some address some high risk areas. So we have a proposal from AECom for $219,320, and that is to provide design and bid phase services for these near-term upgrades. And I'm asking that the board approve that professional service authorization and then a capital project authorization for $254,320. AECom's proposal is attached, if you had time to look at that. But that's what I'm presenting today. Any questions?
Jeff, if you have, so the future of pretreatment plan is not known, right? So it could be 2 years, it could be 30 years, right? If you have an answer is 2 years or 30 years, does it change your proposal?
That's a good question. No, we want to address immediate needs right now that are known and are high risk areas. And if one of these areas fails, it causes major problems downstream at Klein's Island. So I don't think that the scope of whatever the Act 537 decides, it's not going to affect the scope today of what we need to do for the near term.
We need to get, when we get after design phase for expenditure, we need to get the buy-in from our customers that they're hooked to the pre-treatment plant before we spend the money.
Yeah,
You wanna take
you're,
that?
you're looking at me for an answer. Yeah, I think that, that it's kind of a question of it depends on the overall cost of these upgrades. We do have some capital reserves that are pegged for this facility that may be available to cover these costs, but until we get the actual design costs back, we won't know.
Yeah, the preliminary estimate for this project is around $4 million. Four. Yes.
Other board questions? All right, we have before us a capital project authorization request, design and bid phase. Urban Division pretreatment plant, near-term facility upgrades, final design and bid phase. For a total amount of $254,320. That includes a professional services authorization for design and bid phase engineering services to AECOM for $219,320.
So moved.
Thank you, Norma. Seconded by
Second.
Jeff. Okay. Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, under wastewater and sanitary sewer collection system, INI source reduction program, LCA is year number 2, seeking approval to the green documents within the board package, the digital pages 40 to 44.
Thank you, Liesl. Jason Peters is going to present this one. If you recall, in February of this year, the board authorized construction of the SRP Year 1 project. So that project is currently in construction phase. And what we're asking the board for today is design and bid phase engineering for Year 2. This is an amended, this program is driven by the amended lease. It's a 10-year program. Jason is going to talk more about it, but that'll turn it over to Jason.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Brian, for allowing me to present today. Give you a little bit more background. In 2023, LCA and the city of Allentown collaborated to prepare a 10-year INI source reduction plans. As Chuck mentioned, the first year of construction was authorized just a little while ago. The plan, along with the INI reduction plans developed by the municipalities in the Kleins Island sewer system, is required by the Act 537 plan currently under development. Total construction cost of the city's 10-year program is estimated to be approximately $50 million. The goal of the work is the cost-effective reduction of INI to reduce both the dry and wet weather flows to the Kleins Island sanitary system. Under the terms of the lease agreement with the city, LCA is responsible for the city's INI source reduction program. The program is to be developed on a collaborative basis with the city, and the city having the final determination of the scope of the projects to be completed. This project itself, this authorization is for the design and bid phase engineering services alone for the source reduction plan Year 2 effort. Year 2 project will be designed in 2024 and constructed in 2025. Year 2 work will include heavy cleaning of the sewer system that we get into, joint testing, joint grout sealing, and cured in place pipelining. So everything internal into the system, there'll be no dig ups. So this will be all go down through the manhole, get into the main lines, look for potential problems and correct them. This work will be conducted in a specific sewer basin as what Arcadis has identified as the St. Elmo Basin, which is the next priority basin in the 10-year program that was driven out from the rain-driven INI program that Arcadis put together and the 10-year program that Kleinfelter put together with the city of Allentown. The financials under this section here, under the terms of the lease agreement as amended in 2020. LCA will provide funding for this I&I source reduction program from its Allentown division revenues or reserves after the first $650,000 is spent in each year. Additional project costs beyond that will be recaptured through LCA sewer rates through the capital cost recovery charge. As mentioned, this approval, what the Capital Works Department is seeking for is the capital project authorization for the design and bid phase sections only. And to elaborate a little bit more on that, to ensure continuity and efficiencies, LCA recommends retaining the services of Kleinfelter to provide those design bid phase services for year 2. Part of that chunk of professional service authorization, a little extra that we've done this year versus what we looked at in year 1 is to do more CCTV work within the system to actually try to do a little bit better job pinpointing where the system, the collective basin itself may be experiencing more impacts of I&I. So you'll see that in the professional services that would be rendered in this table. Kleinfelter has collaboratively worked with LCA and the city of Allentown to address their wet weather issues for the I&I source reduction. Also, Kleinfelter was a big proponent in the development with the city or its 2007 and 2009 EPA agency administrative order. Kleinfelter supported the city's efforts to develop the I&I source reduction plan, as I made mention before, for their 10-year plan. So with that being said, both the city and LCA have had a good working relationship, and we're seeking to use them here in year 2. So we're looking for a motion for the board to approve a capital project authorization for design bid phase services in the amount of $461,771, which includes the professional service authorization for Kleinfelter for $436,771. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them for you.
Just a general question, would the St. Elmo Basin be near St. Elmo Street?
Good question. Yes.
Jason, keep going back to Kleinfelter because of the consistency that they have to experience. Are we locking ourselves to them and have, without seeing if we are not being overcharged? Because it's going to be many cycles after that, right? So I'm just trying to see, when do we decide that it is time we get a comparative bid? So see that we get a good deal here.
I see where you're coming from, like check and balance, so to speak. I'm sure AJ and Chuck can elaborate on this as well. Kleinfelter supported not only the city of Allentown prior to our LCA's SRP program efforts. They've done a wonderful job. Their expertise for SRP1 was great, on point. But to your point as well, we're constantly looking at other proposals that have come in, looking at different areas and what other engineers can provide to the services. Chuck and AJ, can you elaborate to that fact as well?
Yeah, for the cycle 1 SRP project, we did get, we solicited proposals from 3 firms and we did get prices. And I believe Kleinfelder was the cheapest.
Yeah.
They were also, we liked their experience and their past dealings, their past workings with the city on their portion of the SRP program, which started before we got involved. Kleinfelder is very familiar with the city system and they were cost effective. And for this cycle, we thought we would stay with them, although there'll be future authorizations for this cycle construction phase and like post-construction monitoring that other consultants will be involved, that will recommend other consultants for reasons of their specialized experience. And we're not locked into them for cycle 3. We'll go out again for proposals and prices for different firms. We like their performance for year one, so we wanted to stay with them, but we're not necessarily married to them for this whole program.
So just a comment, so like on the water main replacement, we've had a good relationship with Gannett Fleming and used them
Yes.
repetitively, so
So
same thing, I guess, could happen here, right?
yeah, we'll see how they do. And how the other consultants that we bring in for construction phase and post-construction monitoring, how they do. And then, you know, we'll decide, we'll put together who to recommend for next cycle.
I'll just add one thing. I was curious about their cost too and asked Jason, he evaluated, compared this proposal to the year one cost, and it's about $6,000 more than last year. So inflation and all the rest, we thought it was still a very reasonable price.
And I think a big chunk of this is CCTV work.
Yeah.
Thank you. It is a big figure.
Good question. Any other board questions?
I have a question, Brian. Can you give us an update on the other municipalities that feed into Klein's Island? For instance, you know, the borough of Emmaus, Salisbury, you know, where are they at?
In terms of their I&I removal work?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. Phil, I don't know if you have a good sense or way to summarize what they're each doing.
Yeah, so we have everyone's plans, we've had everyone's source reduction plans, and like Lisa mentioned, they're not uniform. They're not consistent. We're trying to get more consistency, but they're all kind of doing their own thing at different times. At different spend amounts, different techniques, so we're trying to corral all that and do a more standardized approach per DEP's request.
And all that information gets submitted to the DEP and be evaluated by the DEP to determine whether they think they've done enough.
Yeah. I was gonna say also that we do report to DEP quarterly on our connection management plan, as well as each municipality provides an update on their I&I program. So we can certainly make that report available to the board if you wanted to see what each municipality is reporting as their work, their current work.
Norma, do you want to see that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Any other questions? All right. As Jason said, we have before us a capital project authorization request for design and bid phase engineering services of $461,771. The Allentown Division I&I reduction.
So moved.
Hang on.
Okay.
You want to get on there first, huh? All right, so that includes the professional service authorization, Kleinfeld, for design and bid services, for a total of $436,771. I think now accept a motion to that extent.
So moved.
And a second from, Amir, we got Amir, second. All right, motion made and seconded. Any questions? You have a question, Jason?
I just wanted to ask you guys, Jeff, you brought up a good point in regards to the design efforts and in regards to a continued effort from a design standpoint. And you're saying aspect, looking for the best professional service provider. Would you guys, for future project program work like this, particularly the SRP program, since it's going to be several more years chunked out, would you like to group design bid phase for maybe a multi-year? Two years at a time to keep an engineer moving forward, like we do with the water main projects.
You would get a better price by doing it for a two-year phase versus.
Potentially.
That's good. And the whole issue is to make sure we're getting competitive bids, and it's not just,
Right.
Yeah, the AJ explanation that you guys have gone through the exercise, right? I mean, that was what I was looking for, that we have done a homework. We know what the cost range has to be, so now you have somebody that you have worked with, you're confident with going with, and you have, you know, a range that it falls in that range. I just, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with that.
I just wanted to get your guys' feeling and aspect.
I think
that's all.
The decision is up to you as to how, if you want to do that and present it back to us and say that because economies of scale and better, that, you know, you're getting a better deal if you want to do it that way.
No problem.
Okay, we have motion made and seconded, and questions resolved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
All right, continuing with the agenda, we do not do item number 6, we do that in the first meeting of the month. Item number 7, monthly financial review. It's the second board meeting of the month, digital board package, pages 45 to 57.
I know you are eagerly awaiting.
It's a very important part of our business, obviously.
So we're gonna take a look at how we did in April. We'll take a look at the month. So for the month of April, on the income side, LCA finished at almost $1.9 million of positive net income, and that was better than the forecast in total. You could see that all 3 funds contributed positive net income as well, and all 3 funds are on the favorable side compared to forecast for net income. To get into cash flows, in total, we are on the positive side, and that's pretty much driven by what we earned in the city of $2.8 million. We were on, we're negative on suburban water, suburban wastewater. However, we did predict that we were going to be on negative side for both water and wastewater. And so the good news is that we were positive for water against forecasts, wastewater as well, and the city division. So overall, we finished $2.3 million better in total. Year to date.
I'm sorry, so can you move the bar to the top so we can see the bottom number, please? Thank you.
So through 4 months, we're positive in terms of net income for suburban water, a little bit negative. So we're at a loss on wastewater. City divisions, $5.4 million. So you can see almost $6.2 million of net income. Again, since we did a Q2 forecast, the variance for the year to date is going to be equal to the month because we just rolled out a new forecast. But the good news is we're across all 3 funds on cash flows. We're $8.2 million in total cash flow to LCA. You can see suburban water is slightly positive, wastewater is negative, and city division is $9.5 million of cash flow so far. And again, all 3 funds are exhibiting variances that are favorable to what we forecasted in overall $2.3 million favorableness. For the full years, after mentioning that we had basically finished Q1 on a positive basis compared to forecast. And that forecast was kind of founded upon the budget. So when we rolled out to Q2 forecast, we were taking some favorableness in to consideration that occurred already. And actually, as we did Q2, we saw some a little bit more favorable change that we expect to see for the year. So as it sits right now, we look like we're going to be better by 328,000 in water, about 171 in wastewater, and city almost $1 million favorable, and that's on the net income side. Cash flows exhibiting the same pattern. Obviously, they'll all finish on a positive basis, and we should be better by 332 in water, a little bit favorable wastewater, and being a little bit conservative on the wastewater side because of municipal revenues and I'll call it treatment and transportation volumes. So, but we're better than budget right now, and the city division almost $1 million favorable. Okay, as we get into the year to date, you can see that on the income side of suburban water, we're up by 113,000. Actually favorable variances across pretty much all categories except interest expense. So with, you know, $82,000 worth of favorableness on operating expenses being the leading variance, and $26,000 of favorable variance related to interest income. Again, on a full year basis, we think we'll be $328,000 favorable to budget. Cash flows in suburban water. We're up 130. Actually, we were up 155 on cash from operations, which is basically a fallout from the positive net operating income that we just talked about. CAPEX right now is about 52 unfavorable, and then we got some help to erode some of that from interest income, 26,000. So overall, better than forecast. And again, we think we'll finish the year better than for budget as well. In terms of the metrics, right now, debt service coverage ratio is 2.22. That's better than where we thought we would be so far, also better than our internal target. And we think we'll finish the year at 2.1. So that'll come down a little bit on operating ratio. Good with respect to targets, 1.26 versus 1.20. And we think we'll finish at 1.22. So that will push us above the budget target as well. Days cash on hand to almost 258 days against our threshold of 180. And actually, we think this is going to grow by the end of the year to 324. So wastewater year to date, we're favorable to forecast by 72,000. Pretty much every category is so showing some type of favorable variance. The biggest one being interest income, again being up. We're still getting decent rates on our invested balances, and we'll probably have to consider as we move ahead and forecast up in that a bit, because I don't see that changing drastically. So good variances on a year-to-date basis. On wastewater, we're up by $47,000 in terms of cash flows. You got combination variances there. You got some cash from operations based on the net income up. Debt service was a little bit lower. That gets eroded by CAPEX being higher by 91,000, and then you get surplus back from interest income. So kind of a grab bag of favorable variance being offset by the CAPEX. And again, not much. We're not forecasting much on suburban wastewater in terms of variance from budget. Just staying on the conservative side right now.
CAPEX is a timing issue?
This would be timing issue. We have to take another look at CAPEX spending for the entire year. We didn't roll all of that out yet. So at this point in time, you could say it's timing, but I think when we start to look at the project details, there's going to be some things that might slide down a little bit. Debt service coverage ratio, 5.72. That's better than our budgeted target, better than internal target. That will drop a little bit, we think, by the end of the year to 4.80. Operating ratio, we're at 0.97. Budget target is 0.94. I don't like the fact it's a little bit less than 1, but that's what we budgeted. And days cash on hand, well, 222 days versus 180. So we're in good shape with cash, and we think that's going to get better by the end of the year. City division income, almost $11,000 of favorable variance. This would be the one fund that had slightly lower operating revenues. On the city side, we made up for it in favorable operating expenses, favorable interest income. And then a little bit higher on interest expense, but all together kind of washes out to $11,000 of favorable variance. We think we'll get close to $1 million of favorableness versus budget. Cash flows, cash from operations, that was negative, and as we talked about just a few seconds ago, pretty much driven by the lower operating revenues. Made up for it in lower debt service, made up for that in lower CAPEX, and also made up in higher interest income. So pretty good variance year to date. And again, we think we'll finish the year almost $1 million better than budget in cash flows for the city. Metrics, 2.35 versus on coverage versus 2.13 target. We think we'll finish the year at 2.20. That'll still keep us above our budget target. Operating ratio 2.17, that's good, versus the 1.72. I think it'll fall back down to 1.74 by the end of the year. That'll still make us better than budget. And days cash on hand, 440 some days right now. That will drop a bit to 360, but still better than the 180 threshold that we operate by. In terms of the scorecard, well, suburban water hit all 14. Wastewater, we had the net income being a negative number, and cash flow being a negative number, making it hit red, and the operating ratio that we talked about being less than 1 hit red. Other than that, everything else went well, and on the city, just operating revenues as we talked about. So pretty good. I did mention the forecast, so summarizing, we increased the forecast for the 3 funds, and we should have some favorable income variances, favorable variances to budget. Year-to-date performance for both net income and cash flows was better than forecast for all funds, so that's good running start to get going. Still running favorable to forecast. Income on invested balances still above forecast. Rates still remain stronger right now. We'll see what happens with that. And as I mentioned to Amir, we got some work to do to look at CAPEX spending.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the monthly system operations overview. Digital board packages, pages 58 to 60. What documents within your board package and distributed day hard copy.
All right, thank you. In front of you, you do have the April 2024 ops report. We will start out with the injury report. There was a total of 6 incidents in April. 4 of those were injuries. They were all very minor. It was just first aid. And then there was 2 vehicle incidents as well. Just to go over the injuries, one was an employee was turning a valve. His hand slipped off of it and he ended up pinching his finger. The second one was an employee was walking after changing out a dumpster and he stepped off the concrete a little bit and turned his ankle. The third one was an employee was changing a ripsaw blade and slipped and cut his fingernail. And the last one was an employee was working on a fire hydrant and he also smashed his finger. So with those, we did identify 4 corrective actions, and 3 of those as of beginning of this month were completed. Switching over to the plant operations side, you'll notice in the water production, our numbers are starting to rise in both Allentown and the Central Division. With that being said, wastewater is also on the rise. It's been very high all year so far. You'll notice the 40.54 MGD daily flow down at Klein's Island, much higher than the average to date, and then much higher than 2023 averages. And that goes for the pre-treatment plant as well, and all of the small water systems. And that really has to do with the groundwater levels. And you'll notice once again, in April, we did receive 5.56 inches of rain. The majority of that was 3 days, specifically May 1st or April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. The first, we received 0.45 inches of rain. On the second, we had 1.02 inches of rain. And the third, we had 1.92 inches of rain. Having 3 consecutive days of rain like that is a little troublesome. So we did have some operational issues. We did have 2 plant bypasses. One was at Heidelberg Heights, which started on April 3rd through the 8th. And that was a total of around 542,101 gallons. At Lynn, that started on the 3rd and lasted until the 5th. And that was approximately 315,000 gallons. We also did have 1 SSO, which was related to that same wet weather event. That was pretty close to the water plant, and it was discharging at approximately 150 gallons per minute. We're not exactly sure when it stopped just because of the location. And as mentioned, we had 4 injury accidents. We'll switch on over to the next side. Overall, we did have 2 permit exceedances with that bypass at Heidelberg Heights. They were both fecal coliform related. And the other permit exceedance were at Sand Spring, which was an ammonia exceedance and then a total nitrogen exceedance. Other than that, there was no permit exceedances or boil water advisories. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, 4, could be a lot of hand injuries from doing routine work. Anybody sit down with people before they begin a job and talk about potential dangers?
Yes, yeah, we regularly have kind of toolbox talk meetings once a week. And after seeing this, I reinforced with my field service guys that we want to make sure that the guys are using all the PPE that we do provide. Gloves are provided, and I believe in each of these 3 scenarios that if they had been wearing gloves, the hand injuries could have been 100% avoided. We were lucky that none of them required anything more than a little bit of wrap and some Band-Aid. But one of them had a potential for being a little bit more damaging. So we lucked out a little bit, but it was brought up in our toolbox talks, and we did reinforce that PPE should be worn. You know, I think a lot of times, and again, I'm just going to pontificate for a second, is the guys try to go fast, right? They want to kind of get their job done. They want to do the work. And sometimes you have to go slow to go fast, especially in situations where you can get hurt. So it was, again, reinforced with the guys, as Andrew had mentioned, that the root causes were identified immediately and, you know, put into place the reinforcement of making sure that they use all the protective gear that we do provide.
Are there any disciplinary consequences if they are not using the proper PPE?
No, I for one, try really hard not to make it a stick versus a carrot. All we could, you know, I would be really remiss to say that I would be willing to get someone in trouble for not using PPE, especially if they've been hurt. Historically, I've found that, you know, the threats of write-up make people hide these types of injuries rather than reinforce them to use a proper PPE. So, you know, I think all that, you know, myself and the team involved is keep reinforcing positive, you know, actions. You know, safety is imperative above all. You know, we did, I don't want to steal Ed's thunder, but we had a new safety manager start today. And his intent is to be very forward-facing safety manager. So I can only say that, you know, we will continue to reinforce safety protocols with our people, and positive reinforcement will go a long way, I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything further? Questions? All right, moving on then, staff comments. Ed, you want to Go back your thunder.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he was right. I mean, we searched long and hard and found safety risk manager that we think will do a good job for us. Actually, at one point in time, also did this for the city of Allentown. So it's used to being in the municipal world and used to grabbing the full reins of safety and risk management. And I'm looking forward to having somebody to carry the ball on us.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I had the safety manager on my list. Now we've covered it 3 times. The board is, has safety as one of the top concerns for our employee base, and so it's great to mention it 3 times that we have a new safety manager on board, and look forward to introducing him to the board at a future meeting. The other item I wanted to mention is that on May 8th, we did hold a stakeholder advisory panel meeting for the pretreatment plant decision-making process, and extremely well attended. I was very happy to see the regional partners that came together for that meeting. We had about 25 people in attendance, plus another 7 or 8 from LCA and consultants. So we had a pretty full room, and you know, from municipalities, regional agencies, economic development folks, industries, to representatives from our board. And I think had a really healthy dialogue about the importance of the pretreatment plant. And I think we have a lot of work yet to do together to come to some understanding of what the best solution is for this facility. I will say that because of the folks in the room and I think where they're coming from, their position and perspective tended to focus primarily on economic benefit of the pretreatment plant on the region. And I think that's a real open question that we need to get our arms around in terms of how do we quantify what the pretreatment plant is offering our region in terms of true tangible benefit, you know, job creation, you know, tax, all of those kinds of things I think are good things to talk about, but we don't yet know if the pretreatment plant is actually driving that, or is this just a great place for industry to locate because of other things, because of workforce and transportation and, you know, low cost of utilities, et cetera. So, you know, trying to understand the true driver for the manufacturing growth that we have in Western Lehigh County will be important to understanding the next step of that facility. And Mike, Amir, if you have anything you want to comment on, because you were in attendance at that kickoff meeting.
I think the meeting was well organized beforehand. I think you had a couple objectives in your mind that I think you sort of directed the audience to, rather than diverging all over directions to where you want a decision on. I think there's a lot of hard work still in front of us at the end, but I think it was a very well-managed meeting, and I think you have all the key stakeholder in that meeting as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so the group is planning to meet roughly every 3 weeks to keep momentum going. There's a lot of information that was presented, so we don't want to let that get stale and have to remind ourselves and regroup every single meeting. So trying to keep the cadence pretty quick on this and get to some kind of a recommendation from the stakeholder group by the end of July, which will fit into our overall timeline for completing the 537 plan. At the same time and in parallel, we are having actually this week one-on-one meetings with the affected industries, so we can get more detailed feedback from them about what they need and how they're making their decisions, because ultimately the existing industries are the ones who have to bear the brunt of the cost and will have an enormous say in what happens to that facility. So, just a little progress update on that.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor comments.
And no comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, you. Any public comments on any topics whatsoever?
No comments.
Thank you, Brian. All right, board member comments.
I'm
Yep.
just,
Go ahead, Norma.
I have a quick question. Can you give us a status update on the internship program? I mean, have we hired anyone, or what is this current status?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, Norma, because that's one of the most exciting things happening here internally at LCA. I'll turn it to Andrew to give a little update.
Sure. So we completed interviews early May. We had approximately 18 candidates apply for the positions, all well qualified, all super interested in the industry. So we have selected 6, and they are scheduled to onboard June 3rd. And really looking forward to it. They are currently going through the background checks and all that to make sure that they can actually start to work. But everything's going smooth. We have activities planned within the laboratory, within water operations, wastewater operations, engineering, and then we also have a few projects lined up. Just trying to get them to help us out with some things that we don't necessarily have either the time or staff to coordinate in-house. So looking forward to it. It's moving along, and hopefully everyone will be able to meet them at some point.
It's kind of a shame we turn away good quality candidates too. We need so many people.
Well, we do have a strong network within the Lehigh Valley with the Lehigh Valley Water Suppliers Group. Some of those other neighboring utilities have expressed interest in interns. So we're, trying to connect where we can to make sure folks who are interested in water stay interested in water and stay in the Lehigh Valley.
Super.
Jeff?
Just, one question. How did your meeting go with the county commissioners?
The meeting with the county commissioners, thank you, it went great. I had forgotten to report back to you on that. I had a meeting with them on the 24th of April and presented, I'll say a light version of the Kleins Island sewer system plan and all the work that we've been doing. Had some really good questions about the pretreatment plan in particular, as well as how we're handling the growth projections from each municipality, trying to send that clear message that our role is not to do land use planning and zoning and all of that for the communities. The communities, the 15 municipalities do that work, give us the data, and we're building the system to accommodate future desired sewer service. And I think it was a good introduction for the county. They did expect that they might want to hear back from LCA later in the year when the plan is, before the plan goes into the public review process, so that they can get an update. So, thank you.
We're all the county commissioners briefed on the pretreatment plant process that we're going through right now.
Yeah, they were, and I'm really happy with the county's participation in that. The way that it has worked out. The county executive appointed Rick Mulchaney, who's the Director of General Services, to represent him on the stakeholder panel. We have Ron Meitler as a county commissioner who was appointed to sit on the panel. And then he doesn't represent the county necessarily in this role, but Jeff Brace, who is the chairperson for the Board of Commissioners, is also on the panel, but he's representing his employer, who is Representative Mike Schlossberg. So we actually have, I think, very good representation from the county on the stakeholder panel and getting them deeply involved.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll just to add a comment. I had the ability to attend last week's General Assembly by the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, really related to all things LVPC for this year. But one thing, they had Commonwealth representatives there, one representative was our regional representative from Penvest, who I know Liesl knows well, Rebecca. And she was very complimentary of kind of LCA's leadership in getting these Penvest, the financing from Penvest. And there was a lot of attendees from other municipalities, and I think a lot were unaware of the benefit of Penvest. So I made it a point at the end to go up and introduce myself in my board member capacity. And she spoke very highly of the authority. So just wanted to include that.
Always good to hear. Thank you. All right, any other comments? All right, this concludes today's business meeting. We're going to have an executive session after this that'll deal with personnel issues. Right. So that is a separate Zoom session. We'll start at the 1:45, and that information should have been forwarded and emailed to everybody on board. Thank you very much.